So it's fitting that today's gospel presents us with the Beatitudes, especially after we heard the second reading, Paul's warning letter to the Corinthians. Paul reminds us in that letter, or as he reminded the Corinthians way back when, that God's standards are different than human standards or the world's standards. Christian, Paul says, are called to live by a wisdom that many consider foolish, right? Impractical, even absurd. Yet it is precisely this wisdom that reveals God's power. The cross itself, so easily dismissed by the world as weakness, becomes in God's hands the path to eternal life. So today the Beatitudes stand before us as a clear test of which wisdom we choose to trust, right? So this is the final week of our message series entitled, It's Your Move. And it's a great way to look at the Beatitudes because Jesus lays out an alternative way, a way to live, and he invites us to embrace it. So it's your choice. Jesus is forcing no one. The choice is right in front of us because we are living in a time of renewed belief that might makes right. Do you remember that saying, from your childhood? Somebody would say, well, might makes right. Well, that's where it belongs, in childhood, because it's childish. The current message among people in power is strength, dominance, and control are the primary measures of success. What many of us thought had been relegated to the darker chapters of human history is again visible before us. The justification of colonization, kidnapping, the seizure of territory, the subjugation of the weak, the dismissal of the sick and the poor as burdens, and even the resurgence of ideologies such as white supremacy. We should all be supremacists. There's one supreme being, God. Anybody else who claims to be superior is an idol. All of these are rooted in the same principle that power determines truth, force determines justice. It reminds me of the old saying that was attributed to Louis of France, Louis XIV, when he was told that, well, Your Majesty, that's against the law. And he said, l'été, c'est moi. The state, I am the state. I make the laws. Anything I say, because he asserted his absolute power, anything I say or do is the law. So there's nothing new about this way of thinking. From the earliest empires, the temptation was always the same. I have the power, I must be right, I can impose my will is just. Yet we call ourselves disciples of Jesus Christ, and that means we are bound to live by a very different rule of life. As disciples of Jesus, we do not choose the world's standards when they conflict with the gospel. So some examples. We love buying things, but Jesus blesses the poverty of spirit. We avoid discomfort, and Jesus blesses those who mourn. We admire aggressive ambition. Jesus blesses the meek. We binge on social media. Jesus blesses those thirsting for righteousness. Jesus dismantles this logic of might makes right and replaces it with the logic of love, trust, and self-giving. The Beatitudes function not as rules imposed from the outside, but as a way of life we can choose in communion with God. But to understand how the poor, the sorrowful, the meek, and the persecuted are blessed requires a deep shift in perspective, a way of seeing the world. According to the world's logic, it's the wealthy, powerful, and popular who are blessed. The poor are often treated as economic problems, an embarrassment, or a failure. The meek, the marginalized, and the forgotten are seen as people who get stepped on or left behind. And those who show mercy are sometimes labeled as weak and naive. And those who are pure of heart are dismissed as unrealistic. If we mourn, we are told to numb the pain or just move on. If we are insulted or slandered, we encourage to retaliate. But if we embrace the profound wisdom of the Beatitudes, we experience authentic power for effective, faithful living. And when we are poor in spirit, we are not diminished, we are made receptive. That's the key, receptive. It's not weakness, it's receptivity. We know we bring nothing that God needs, and nothing that obligates God to love us. We bring our needs, hoping for sustenance. We bring our brokenness, hoping for healing. We bring our sin, hoping for forgiveness. Poor in spirit means coming before God empty-handed and open to receive grace. And when we are meek, we are not passive. Meekness allows us to listen, to see both sides of a conflict, and to recognizing the redeeming value of compromise. When we mourn, we're not defeated. We become more capable of empathy for others who are suffering because we know the cost of love. And when we hunger and thirst for righteousness, we are not idealists lost, in the clouds. We are motivated to act, to seek justice, to work for the dignity of every human person. And when we are pure of heart, God's loving promise is clear, less obscured by our selfish motives. And when we show mercy rather than vengeance, we reveal a heart that reflects God's own heart. And we stand firm for righteousness. We demonstrate true strength of character. As people of faith, we live under a promise. The promise that God will come and make things right. And that promise comforts us as we look to the future, when all things will be brought to fulfillment, but it also gives us hope and comfort in the here and now. We trust that God's justice is real and that our task is faithfulness, not control. What would happen? Let's imagine. What would happen if this week we chose one beatitude and practiced it intentionally? I'm sure you do practice them regularly already. But what would it be like if we picked one and focused on it this week? What if we let go of anger instead of feeding it? What if we responded to an insult with kindness? What if we chose prayer instead of resentment? And one prayer you might think about taking up as a practice this week is the Peace and Justice Novena. It's in the bulletin. It's on the social media for the parish. It's called the Novena for Peace, Justice, and Protection of Human Dignity through the intercession of Dorothy Day. That's one thing we can do. So as members of the human family, we also have a responsibility beyond our personal lives. In an emerging national culture dominated by bully tactics and the logic of dominance, we must find faithful, peaceful ways to say, might does not make right. We must say to those who think might is right, you are wrong for using militant aggression just because you can. It's our move. If we want to imagine and then live by a different rule of life, what would it look like if beatitude shaped our common life? What if mercy, humility, and hunger for justice were treated not as liabilities, but as guiding principles? Jesus makes one more important shift in today's gospel. It's important to sometimes focus on one word in the gospel. And the word in the gospel I'm going to focus on to finish out my message is the word you. Because Jesus is speaking to a community, not to individuals. This means we cannot live the Beatitudes alone, because the you that Jesus is using is plural. It's not singular. He's speaking to us as a community, not to each of us individually. This means we cannot live the Beatitudes alone. We need one another's support, encouragement, and forgiveness. If you are looking for a way to be in community of faith in addition to your Sunday Mass attendance, start thinking about next Sunday when we'll have sign up for Lenten Bible study. Consider signing up for one of the small groups where you can practice another way to practice the Beatitude way of life. As a community of faith, we are called to embody together what the world finds foolish. So it's your move. In the face of all the forces that insist that power determines truth, we can proclaim love, peace, mercy, and trusting in God as our source of power. Jesus assures us that the rewards for this way of life extend into eternal life. But even now, the Beatitudes shape us into people who live with the mind and heart of Jesus Christ. It's your move.